Hello learners, welcome to the yet another session of environmental and occupational hazards. Today we are going to discuss about corporate and office hazards. In this also specially we are focusing mainly on physical and chemical hazards. Before going into the details of today's session, we have to recapitulate what we have learnt in the last session. Working in a hospital that can be greatly satisfying. Doctors, nurses and laboratory workers, they will feel proud when patients are treated by them, get cured and return to home. And then there is a lot of satisfaction that we have done something to the society. But the other side of the working in hospitals is too many to be ignored. A big hospital, for example, perhaps the only place on earth where there is an ample mix of various type of health hazards found under one roof. There are heavy instruments, there are sharp scalpels, hazardous chemicals, inflammable gases and also people those who are teeming with the germs. And all these can cause various health hazards in persons those who are working in a hospital setup. So the real situation is not so scary though. There are various personal protective equipment which are available that protects the healthcare professionals from being exposed to many hazards in hospitals. A hospital with good administration, having adequate number of staff and also written policies regarding working hours that has happy employees. Definitely. The main factors and conditions which are associated with physical hazards like body stressing and the confined spaces, electricity, heat and then height of the roof, noise and then vibration. So now we will see that what is meant by the body stressing. Body stressing is a collective term that covering a broad range of health problems which are associated with the repetitive and the strenuous work. Now we have to deal with more into details of these topics today. So now first, what are the factors that will influence body stressing? First and foremost important thing is psychosocial aspects of the work. That means job demands, control, support and satisfaction, imbalance between effort and reward and also the monotony of tasks. That means regularly the same thing if anyone can do, they will get stressed. So financial concerns or relationship issues may also contribute for this one. And some other aspects are the biomechanical aspects, that means soft tissue damage that may occur through either by the direct exposure or just like a blunt trauma or sudden overload that leads to a muscle tear or sprain or otherwise exposure, that is repeated light loading, that leading to symptoms that may accumulate to cause further degeneration and also injury. And another important factor is the individual worker characteristics factors, that may be health problems or out of hours demand. So body stressing sources of risk are, that is a manual handling and also the computer usage, and they are most important key risks for body stressing. The work area is also most important, the design and layout systems of work and also work organization, loads, tools, machinery and equipment and also workplace equipment and other considerations are also have to be taken care of. Common injuries may be in the form of sprains and strains of muscles, ligaments and tendons, back injuries, joint and bone injuries or degeneration, nerve injuries or compression or chronic pain like this. Body stressing, that is a warning signs. Definitely our body will provide us warning signs. There are a range of body stressing injury symptoms like muscular pain, sore joints, tingling sensation, burning, inflammation, sometimes maybe a cramp or loss of grip, strength, reduced mobility and then feeling. And sometimes will overwhelmed at work, lack of concentration, not being able to complete the task in stipulated time, regular feelings of fatigue, sleep disturbances, stress and pain affecting mood, work and also family and social life. And another important aspect in this corporate sector is the air quality. And everyone will be astonished to see that how air quality will affect the human cognition. We never ever thought of it. What is meant by the cognition? It is quite simply that is a process of thinking like memory functions, decision making, critical analysis and even creativity. So these processes are all crucial for running or working for a company. Some air pollutants that have specific effects on the brain and nervous system that can definitely disturb normal cognitive functioning. Among these pollutants like particulate matter and volatile organic compounds and lead are the most detrimental to our brain. Particulate matter that causes oxidative stress and also inflammation of the central nervous system, especially brain, that causing damage over the long term. If we will see the volatile organic compounds, they are frequently associated with the so many other ailments like sick building syndrome and with memory and concentration impairment. So you have to remember that what is meant by the sick building syndrome, SBS. It is a medical condition in which occupants of a particular building, they will experience some problems with health and comfort as a result of the building's air. That means indoor air quality. It can definitely causes dizziness, fatigue, eye irritation and also other cold or flu-like symptoms. So the symptoms of sick building syndromes are typically short term and also go away soon after leaving the polluted area. This syndrome is becoming more common, causing high rates of absenteeism and also decrease in productivity in workplaces. While we may not see as much lead paint as we used to, lead is still classified as a criteria air pollutant with the EPA. Mostly particulate matter 2.5, that is a PM 2.5, lead can pass through the blood brain barrier, that is a BBB, that damages the brain and also central nervous system severely. When compared to particulate matter and lead, carbon dioxide doesn't seem to be on the same playing field. The cognitive effects of the carbon dioxide are lot more suitable, lot more subtle, but can make a significant difference when it comes to employee productivity. At levels commonly found in meeting rooms and also conference rooms, carbon dioxide can reduce the focus and also increase feelings of tiredness and drowsiness and even give up people a headache. So because carbon dioxide is found at high concentrations in human exhalations, we know that. But carbon dioxide levels that can quickly rise in crowded and then air-tight rooms. So the brain inflammation that is caused by the fine dust particles that definitely return to the normal, especially if exposed for longer durations. In the meantime, what will happen? The working capabilities of the affected employees will be reduced as they struggle to concentrate. The other cognitive effects like indoor and outdoor air pollutants that can exacerbate pre-existing medical conditions or even create new ones. When people are too sick to come in for work, it can disrupt the office environment and it make difficult to maintain project schedules. Air pollution, especially the particulate matter, is closely associated with higher rates of sick leave up to 20 years after exposure. So it is a very long period. So another physical hazard is noise. We have already learnt in previous sessions a lot about the noise stress, that how noise is detrimental to the health in different occupations. Now we have to learn some more facts about the noise. Noise is measured in decibels. There are two aspects to sound measurements. One is the frequency of the sound and the other one is the intensity of the sound. So the decibel scale is logarithmic, we know that. A small increase in the decibel level is its reality, a big increase in the noise level. For example, an increase of only 3 decibel doubles the noise level at the human ear and also half the time a person should be exposed to it once harmful levels are reached. If you need to raise your voice to speak to someone, those who are in 3 feet away, noise levels might be over 85 decibels. For example, noise levels at 85 decibels A that may take as long as 8 hours to cause hearing damage, while noise at 100 decibel A may start damaging hair cells in the ear after only 30 minutes. So you have to check that comparison between 85 to 100 decibels. And the next we have to understand that how do you know that noise may be a problem in the workplace. Normally we won't realize, but if one can hear ringing or humming in your ears when you leave the work or have to shout to be heard by co-workers an arm length away or experience temporary hearing loss when leaving the work. So the main health effects which are associated with the noise is tinnitus. Sometimes it is a ringing in the ears. Some ringing sound may be experienced by some workers, which is an early sign of hearing damage. Excessive exposure to noise that increases the risk of tinnitus. And also the noise is impulsive in nature. The risk can rise substantially. So this tinnitus can be a very distressing condition and also can lead to disturbed sleep and affected speech also sometimes. So there is no effective cure for this type of condition, but there is a treatment available for easing the symptoms. So noise induced hearing loss, especially this noise induced hearing loss occurs because excessive noise damages that delicate hearing mechanism of the inner ear. So it is the most common preventable occupational health condition across the world. So the level of noise that is likely to damage hearing that may vary depending upon the individual's characteristic features and the duration for which they are exposed to that particular noise. Hearing loss is a common health problem that frequently develops with age. So it is linked with the genetic inheritance also and also some other illness which are associated, and it is caused by the exposure to excessive noise. So hearing loss is not always gradual. It can occur when an individual is exposed to very intense or loud noise for short period of time, like a loud explosion. So this condition is known as acoustic trauma. And also the ear's sensitivity level decreases as a measure of protection against exposure to noise. So this process is also known as shift in the threshold of hearing. That means not only the sounds louder than a certain level will be heard. So the shift may be temporary or permanent. Short-term hearing loss can be experienced as a temporary threshold shift. It may occur suddenly after exposure to intense and also loud noise, as a situation most individuals have experienced at some point in their lives. So there are temporary thresholds are also there that results in temporary hearing loss. The repeated exposure to such intense or loud noise normally transforms this into a permanent loss or permanent threshold shift. So this occurs when individuals have been regularly exposed to high levels of noise over a longer period of time. It is also occurs when exposed to noise repeatedly without sufficient time between exposures to allow recovery of normal hearing, that resulting in the permanent hearing damage. Loss of hearing that can have a huge impact on individuals' personals as well as at their performing life at the workplace. Once hearing has been damaged, there is currently no known cure or effective treatment. So noise can have an effect on the cardiovascular system also, that resulted in an increase in blood pressure and also the release of some catecholamines in the blood. An increased level of catecholamines in the blood which is associated with the stress. Now we have to see that how the occupational stress developed with this. So normally occupational stress rarely has a single cause and also arises from the interaction of several risk factors which are associated with it. So persistent noise in the work environment that can be a stressor even at quite low levels. Other effects are also there, that is the excessive levels of noise that will definitely increase the likelihood of the undesired events or incidents, and also sometimes it may be a distracting workers like drivers, or making it harder for workers to hear and understand instructions correctly from the manager or the higher authorities, and masking the sound of approaching danger, and also warning signals have to be there, and contributing to irritation and annoyance that may lead to the human error. So an individual performance in tasks demanding continuous attention is required, and also it will be definitely affected by noise as it can distract them from their focus. So what will happen? So poor judgments and also decision making process also lapse. So exposure to excessive noise is not the only risk factor that can result in hearing impairment, and some chemical agents are also known as ototoxic in nature, and also medications that can also cause damage to the hearing. There are over 200 identified chemical agents that may affect hearing on temporary or sometimes it on the permanent basis. Exposure to such chemicals may increase the effect of noise on hearing loss. Now we will look into the examples of the physical hazards. There may be fires, there may be explosions, and some examples of health hazards may be, that is a cancer, skin irritation, and respiratory ailments. And also the noise measurement in the units of sound pressures, which are what we have already seen, that decibels, using A weighted sound levels. So that is why always we will mention that dBA. So there are several ways to control and reduce worker exposure to noise in a workplace where exposure is very excessive in nature. The most important thing over here is the engineering controls. So this involves modifying or replacing equipment or making related physical changes at the noise source, or we can say that along the transmission path to reduce the noise levels at the workers' ears. For example, an inexpensive effective engineering controls can be adopted, and selection of low noise tools and machinery is also important. Maintain and lubricate the machinery and equipment like oil bearings, and also placing a barrier between the noise source and an employee like curtains or otherwise sound walls, and enclose or isolate the noise source. And along with these, administrative controls are also most important in the workplace, especially to make a schedule that reduce or eliminate the workers' exposure to noise. And with so many employees regularly exposed to or using hazardous substances at work, knowing how to identify common workplace chemical hazards and how to avoid them, that becomes a paramount. So employers with hazardous substances are legally obliged to include warning labels and also SDS, that is our safety data sheets, with their products as chemical hazards and toxic substances that can present a wide range of short and long term health issues like poisoning, skin rashes, sometimes disorders of the lung, kidney, and also liver. So all chemicals exist in one or other forms, that is a solid, liquid, or gaseous form. So we know that the physical states of hazardous chemicals is an important factor in understanding their health effects and also their physical state that determines how it may enter into our body. For example, a gas may enter the body by inhalation, of course, but liquids may be absorbed by the skin, and sometimes some chemical hazards like acids in the workplace, caustic substances, cleaning products like toiletry cleaners, disinfectants, and mildew removers, and also chlorine bleach and glues. They will pose also hazardous risk to the human beings. Heavy metals like mercury, lead, cadmium, aluminium, paint, pesticides and some petroleum products, solvents, and sometimes photocopier toner will also have the highest hazard that will pose to the human beings. So now we can understand that how to avoid chemical hazards in the workplace. So in order to ensure the chemical safety in the workplace, the information about the identities of that particular hazards of chemicals should be available and understandable to the workers prior to coming into the workplace. So employers shall ensure that labels on incoming containers of hazardous chemicals and also are not removed or defaced. So they have to be legible in nature. And employer shall maintain any safety data sheets which are received with incoming shipments and of the hazardous chemicals and ensure that they are readily accessible during each work shift to the laboratory employees when they are in their work areas. And also employers shall ensure that the employees are provided the information and also training. And also some of the corporate sector, they have the hazardous chemicals which are considered to be either the chemical manufacturer or the distributor under this rule, and also they must ensure that any containers of hazardous chemicals leaving the office or wherever it is should be labeled properly. In work operations where employees only handle chemicals in sealed containers which are not opened under normal conditions of use, like some are found in marine cargo handling and some are warehousing or retail sales. So employers shall ensure that labels on incoming containers of hazardous chemicals should not be removed, they have to be legibly exposed to. So they have to maintain the copies of any safety data sheets which are received with incoming shipments of the sealed containers of the hazardous chemicals, shall obtain a safety data sheet as soon as possible for the sealed containers of the hazardous chemicals received without a safety data sheet if an employee requests that safety data sheet, and also they have to ensure that the SDS are readily accessible during each work shift to the employees when they are in their work areas. And also they have to ensure that the employees are provided with information and training in accordance with that except for the location or the availability of the written hazard communication program, and also to the extent that is necessary to protect them in the event of spill or leak of hazardous chemical from a sealed container. And also some items does not require labeling of chemicals like pesticides, and then but there is a defined in the insecticide or fungicide or rodenticide act when subject to the labeling requirements of that act and labeling regulations which are issued under that act by the Environmental Protection Agency. Any chemical substance or mixture in terms of definition in the toxic substances when subject to the labeling requirement of the act and labeling regulations which are issued under that act by the EPA. Any food or food additive or color additive or drug or cosmetic or medical or veterinary devices or any product that including materials which are intended for use as ingredients in such products like flavors or fragrances. So that also have to be defined properly as well as in the Food, Drug and Cosmetic Act. So the regulations which are issued under those acts, they have to be subjected to the labeling requirement under those acts have to be followed properly. Any distilled spirits or like beverages or alcohols, wine or malt beverages, they are intended for the non-industrial use. So that also have to be properly defined in that Alcohol Administration Act and regulations which are issued under that act. When subject to the labeling requirements of that particular act and also issued under that act by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco and then Firearms. With this information, dear learner, I would like to conclude this session. So in this session we have discussed and learnt about the list of hazards which are encountered by the healthcare professionals also, and also the especially in the workers, those who are working in the corporate sectors. We will never imagine that the hazards arises from the corporate sectors, because every day we are going to the offices. We never know and realize that there is a hazard is expected to be, and then that should be posed an adverse health effect on that one. So this session we have concluded with the explaining preventive measures of healthcare hazards and also standard precautions and disposal of the hazardous waste. I think you will be definitely benefited with this session. In the next session we will come up with some other new topics. Thank you.